I still remember the sound of Grandpa's safe door swinging open. Slow, hollow, final. The velvet boxes were gone. The drawers were empty. $500,000 in cash and Grandma's sapphire necklace had vanished without a trace. The police said there were no signs of forced entry, but I didn't need them to tell me what my gut already knew. That night, my sister Harper posted a photo online standing in front of a brand new silver Audi, champagne in one hand, keys in the other, captioned, "New Beginnings." My billionaire grandfather sat in silence, staring at the screen, his face gray under the lamplight. A week later, Harper called me, her voice shaking. "What have you done, Kinsley? I hate you." I just smiled, watching the light from the phone flicker across my face. Because by then, my revenge was already complete. When you grow up in a house filled with marble floors and oil paintings, you stop noticing the price of things, until the day you watch it all disappear. That morning, I walked into Grandpa's study, carrying his favorite coffee, black, 1 sugar, and froze. The safe door was hanging open, a metal mouth yawning in silence. The drawers inside were empty, except for a single velvet pouch, ripped at the seam. I called out, "Grandpa?" My voice sounded small in the echoing room. He appeared moments later, still in his robe, his cane tapping the hardwood floor. The color drained from his face when he saw the open safe. "No," he whispered, stumbling forward. "Kinsley, it was locked last night. I checked it myself." I crouched beside the safe, tracing the dial. No scratches. No sign of a break-in. "Someone knew the code," I said quietly. He looked at me with disbelief first, then heartbreak. "Only 2 people know the combination, you and me." "I didn't open it," I said. "I swear." "I know," he said softly, but I could tell his mind was already spinning. By the time the police arrived, the morning sun had turned sharp and cruel. They photographed everything, dusted for prints, asked questions that felt mechanical. "Any staff changes recently? Visitors? Family?" That last word, family, hung in the air like poison. When the officers left, Grandpa sank into his armchair and rubbed his temples. "They took everything, Kinsley. Your grandmother's jewelry, the cash, the documents, decades of my life." I placed my hand on his. "We'll find out who did this." But even as I said it, my phone buzzed. A notification. I glanced down and froze. It was my sister, Harper. Her post lit up my screen. A mirror selfie in front of a luxury kitchen with white marble countertops and gold fixtures. Caption: "Finally, home number New Beginnings number Dream House." Attached were 2 photos, a shiny silver Audi in a driveway, and her husband Dylan holding up the keys, grinning like a fool. My pulse slowed. Cold, calculated. The safe had been emptied on Tuesday night. Harper's new home photo was posted Thursday morning. I didn't say a word to Grandpa. I just turned off my phone and forced a smile. "Let's get some rest. We'll talk to Detective Miller tomorrow." But later that night, I sat in the dark at my desk, scrolling through Harper's feed. New house, new car, expensive clothes. Her life had changed overnight, and all right after our family's fortune vanished. I replayed her voice in my head, from the last time we spoke. "You and Grandpa always act like the world owes you. Maybe it's time things evened out." Evened out. Now I understood what she meant. As the house grew quiet, I looked toward the hallway where Grandpa's room was. I could still hear his faint cough, the sound of an old man trying to hold on to dignity. And in that moment, I made myself a promise. I wasn't going to call the police again. I wasn't going to beg for justice. I was going to take it back myself. Because if Harper thought she could steal from a billionaire and walk away smiling, she hadn't yet met the version of me that woke up that night. The next morning, Grandpa's lawyer, Mr. Dalton, came over. He was the kind of man who could make sympathy sound like a legal clause. "Without clear evidence of forced entry," he said, "the insurance company may reject the claim. I'll do what I can." Grandpa nodded weakly, his eyes lost somewhere beyond the room. The safe behind him stood open, an ugly reminder of betrayal. While Dalton spoke in circles about paperwork, I noticed something on Grandpa's desk, a stack of old checkbooks, 1 torn page missing. My instincts buzzed. When Dalton left, I asked, "Grandpa, Did Harper ever borrow money from you recently? He frowned. She mentioned Dylan was having trouble with his tech business. I gave them some advice. Not money. Did she ask for your safe code? He hesitated, then exhaled. She said she needed to retrieve some old family documents while I was at the doctor's. I told her the combination. I closed my eyes. And you didn't change it afterward? No. Why would I? That was all I needed to know. I spent the rest of the afternoon pretending to comfort him while my mind ran calculations like a silent storm. Harper had motive, access, and opportunity. She just didn't have fear yet. That evening, I drove to her new address. The house was in Desert Ridge, one of those luxury communities where fountains gurgled in the desert and every lawn looked like a magazine cover. Her Audi was in the driveway, sunlight glinting off its hood like a taunt. I parked down the street and watched. Through the window, I saw Harper laughing, champagne glass raised, Dylan's arm around her shoulders. My phone buzzed a message from her. Harper. Hope Grandpa's okay. I'm praying for him. Me. He's heartbroken. We were robbed. Harper. Oh my God, that's awful. Any idea who did it? Me. Not yet. Harper. Keep me posted. I'll come visit soon. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to type, "You already did visit but deleted it." Instead, I took photos. The car, the house, the timestamp. 2 days later, I contacted an old friend, Jacob Harlan, a private financial investigator I used to work with at the bank. You're saying your sister bought a $500,000 house in cash right after your grandfather got robbed? He asked. Not cash, I said. She financed it. But the down payment $45,000 was cash. I want to know where it came from. He whistled softly. That's not coincidence. Send me whatever you have, bank name, full legal names, timeline. I'll dig quietly. I did. Within 24 hours, he called back. Kinsley, you're not gonna like this. Her husband deposited 25 grand cash the day after the theft. Then another 20 into a different account 3 days later. Both flagged for review but not investigated yet. Because? Because he split them into smaller amounts under reporting limits. It's called structuring. I gripped the edge of my desk, anger simmering cold and steady. They're not just thieves, I said. They're amateurs. Jacob paused. You want me to take this to law enforcement? No. Not yet. Then what's your plan? To let them think they've won. I hung up and turned toward Grandpa's portrait on the wall, his younger self, confident, dignified. You built an empire with patience, I whispered. I'll reclaim it the same way. That night, I opened a new file on my laptop. Operation Balance. Inside, I typed the first line. February 15. Theft confirmed. Harper gains assets. Watch, record, wait. Every war starts with a list. And mine had just begun. 3 days after my call with Jacob, he sent me a file. A neat PDF, numbers, dates, transfers. Cold, clean proof that Harper and Dylan had touched Grandpa's money. But proof wasn't enough. Not yet. I wanted them cornered, gasping. I wanted them to feel that same hollow terror Grandpa had felt staring at the empty safe. That night, I went back to the mansion. Grandpa was sitting in the study, his reading glasses sliding down his nose, a legal envelope trembling in his hands. It's the insurance company, he said. They're denying the claim. No signs of forced entry. He looked up, eyes glassy. Kinsley, maybe we should just move on. Oh? Move on. 2 words that tasted like ash. I nodded because I couldn't bear to tell him the truth yet. If he knew Harper was behind this, it would kill him faster than age ever could. After he went to bed, I pulled out the photos I'd taken of Harper's house and car. The Audi gleamed even under streetlights, an arrogant silver trophy. I enlarged one of the pictures. There it was. The dealership sticker still on the license plate. Perfect. The next morning, I drove to the Scottsdale Audi showroom. The air smelled like new leather and lies. A salesman in a charcoal suit approached with a smile. Looking for something particular? Just browsing, I said. My sister bought a car here recently, a silver Q7, Harper Davis. His smile faltered slightly, then returned. Yes, I remember her. Beautiful car. Paid a good chunk in cash. How much? I asked. feigning casual curiosity. About 25,000 down, he chuckled. Wish more buyers were like that. I thanked him and left, my heart hammering but my face calm. Outside, I took a slow breath. The timeline matched. 3 days after Grandpa's money vanished, Harper paid $25,000 cash for an Audi. 2 days later, another $45,000 cash for the house deposit. She hadn't even waited a week. Back home, I added new entries to Operation Balance. February 15, theft confirmed. February 18, Audi Q7 purchased, $25K cash. February 21, house deposit, $45K cash. February 25, mortgage approved. Underneath, I wrote, "The stupid always move faster than the smart." That evening, Harper called. "Hey sis, Grandpa's been quiet lately. How's he holding up?" "He's coping." "Good. I was thinking of dropping by this weekend." "Don't." A pause. Then that nervous laugh I knew too well. "What's that supposed to mean?" "He doesn't need your sympathy. He needs honesty." "Excuse me?" she snapped. "Are you implying something?" "No," I said, keeping my tone flat. "I'm saying timing is everything." She hung up. 2 nights later, I was woken by my phone vibrating. It was Jacob again. "Found something else," he said. Property documents showed Dylan's income at $65,000 a year. Yet he declared nearly $70,000 in cash within 10 days. No loans, no inheritance, no transfers. Meaning? Meaning they laundered Grandpa's cash directly. If the IRS ever saw this, they'd have a field day. I smiled in the dark. "Don't worry, they will." After I hung up, I couldn't sleep. The house was silent except for the ticking of the old grandfather clock, its rhythm sharp, relentless, like a countdown. In my mind, I could see Harper and Dylan laughing in their new living room, believing they were untouchable. But justice doesn't shout, it waits. And I was patient. Before sunrise, I drafted another list. This one had only 3 lines. Learn Arizona tax law, track unpaid property debts, make her pay in her own currency. When I finished, I shut the laptop, staring at my reflection in the black screen. For the first time since the theft, I didn't look like the grieving granddaughter anymore. I looked like a hunter. For weeks, I let Harper believe I'd moved on. I answered her texts with polite half-sentences, asked about her beautiful new home, even sent her a polite smile emoji when she bragged about the pool. It was all part of the act. The calm before the storm. While she played house with stolen money, I was turning every ounce of my anger into paperwork. Grandpa had always said, "Power isn't loud, Kinsley. It's documented." So I started documenting everything. My next stop was the downtown office of Jacob Harlan's old colleague, a real estate attorney named Marcus Webb, the kind of man who spoke in clauses and thought in contingencies. He greeted me with a firm handshake and cautious curiosity. "Jacob told me you're gathering information?" "Not information," I corrected. "Leverage." I handed him a folder thick with printouts, bank transfers, property filings, screenshots of Harper's new home listing. He flipped through them, his brow furrowing. "This is thorough. You've got dates, movements, everything but a confession." "Confession isn't necessary," I said. "Proof of inconsistency is." Webb leaned back in his chair. "So, what exactly do you want to do?" "I want to make sure Harper pays for what she stole legally, quietly, and permanently." He smiled faintly. "You sound like a prosecutor." "No," I said. "Just a woman with receipts." We worked for hours, building a financial map of Harper and Dylan's assets. Mortgage details, car financing, property liens, tax records, every thread of their perfect life, laid out on paper. Then Webb tapped one line with his pen. "They owe back property taxes from last year. Not much, around 8,000. But in Arizona, unpaid taxes become public liens. And anyone can buy them." I blinked. "Meaning?" "Meaning, if someone buys that lien and they fail to repay it, that person can legally foreclose the property." End quote. Even if it's their home? Especially if it's their home. For the first time in weeks, I felt a chill of satisfaction. "Can we purchase it?" Webb nodded. "Through a holding company. Keeps you invisible. Do it." Over the next days, I moved like a ghost through the system Grandpa had once ruled. I used my savings money earned honestly to fund a new entity, Whitmore Holdings LLC. The name was bland, bureaucratic, and perfect. Webb filed the paperwork, and within 2 weeks, Whitmore Holdings officially owned Harper's tax lien. On paper, she owed me, though she didn't know it yet. But I wasn't done. I wanted to make sure every dollar of that stolen fortune turned into a blade against her. That night, I met Naomi Torres, a forensic accountant Webb recommended ex-IRS, mid-40s, eyes that missed nothing. She skimmed the documents like a detective at a crime scene. $70,000 in cash movement across 3 accounts, she murmured. Classic structuring. You file the right report, the IRS will eat them alive. I exhaled slowly. Can it be anonymous? She smiled. Completely. It'll look like an internal flag. No one will trace it back to you. Then do it. Naomi closed the file. You know, most people want their money back. You just want them punished. I looked out the window, the city lights flickering against the glass. Money can be replaced, I said. Respect can't. A week later, everything was in motion. Whitmore Holdings quietly owned their tax lien. The IRS had received Naomi's anonymous report, and Harper, blissfully unaware, was posting photos of her new designer kitchen under the caption number Grateful Heart. She had no idea gratitude was the last thing she should be feeling, because beneath those marble tiles she bragged about, the ground was already shifting, and I was the one pulling it out from under her feet. It started quietly, like most storms do. A letter, thin and official, stamped Internal Revenue Service, delivered to Harper's new house on a Wednesday morning. By Friday, she called me. Kinsley, she began, voice shaky but still trying to sound casual. You won't believe this. We got an audit notice from the IRS. They're saying we didn't report something. Oh? I said, pouring my coffee. What kind of something? Some ridiculous claim about unreported income. It's absurd. Dylan's freaking out. We have all our receipts. Cash transactions? I asked, cutting her off. Silence? Why would you ask that? Just a guess, I said lightly. Sometimes random audits look at cash flow. It's not random, she snapped, her calm cracking for the first time. It's way too specific. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding, I said, my voice warm, my smile colder. The truth always surfaces eventually. She hung up. Over the next 2 weeks, I followed their unraveling from a distance. Jacob sent me updates. They hired a tax attorney, $5,000 up front, $300 an hour. IRS is questioning $70,000 in cash deposits. They're panicking. Every night, I updated my file, operation balance, with new notes. IRS audit initiated. Attorney fees rising. Stress fractures visible. It was beautiful, in a terrible way, like watching a sandcastle collapse under its own weight. Then came the call from Grandpa. He was sitting on the veranda when I arrived, looking smaller under the Arizona Sunday. Harper called me, he said quietly. She sounded scared. Did she tell you why? She said the IRS is accusing her husband of fraud. She begged me to help, to lend them money. I stayed silent. Kinsley? He sighed. Family makes mistakes. We forgive them. Family doesn't steal, I replied. And forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. He looked at me for a long moment, sadness, pride, and something like recognition in his eyes. You've grown cold, he said finally. No, I whispered. I've grown accurate. By the end of that month, the numbers were turning against Harper. Jacob reported that their combined tax penalties exceeded $20,000. Their mortgage payments were late. Their car loan was underwater. And the IRS wasn't done yet. One afternoon, I received a message from Naomi, the accountant who had filed the anonymous report. Naomi, audit results in. They couldn't justify cash origin. Penalties applied. Total liability, $18,740. Due in 30 days. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. That evening, Harper called again, her voice stripped of all confidence. They're going to seize our accounts, Kinsley. They froze Dylan's business card today. Do you know what that feels like? We're drowning. You should have learned to swim before diving into someone else's vault, I said softly. What? Nothing. I'm sorry, Harper. I really am. But you'll figure it out. She started to cry. The sound was raw, unfamiliar. The cry of someone who'd never had to face accountability before. You think you're better than me? She spat through tears. You always were Grandpa's favorite. Now you get to watch me fall apart. Is that what you wanted? No, I said calmly. What I wanted was honesty. What I got was theft. She went silent for a long time before whispering, Something's happening, isn't it? You're doing something. I'm doing nothing, I said truthfully. Justice is doing everything. After she hung up, I sat in the quiet glow of my study. The night was still, the kind that made every sound sharper, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the clock. In the corner, Grandpa's portrait watched me. For a moment, guilt brushed against my ribs, light, fleeting, almost tender. Then I thought of the open safe, his trembling hands, his quiet shame. The guilt evaporated. The next morning, Jacob called again. You might want to sit down for this, he said. What now? The IRS just put a lien on their account for unpaid penalties. Dylan's trying to get a personal loan to cover it. All rejected. I leaned back in my chair, a slow smile forming. Good, I said. Let the walls close in. Through the window, the Arizona heat shimmered over the desert horizon. Somewhere across town, Harper was probably staring at another official envelope, hands shaking. But this was no accident. It was the calm precision of justice. And I had just pulled the trigger. The call came at 10:47 p.m. I was sitting on the balcony with a glass of wine, the city lights flickering below, when my phone buzzed violently against the table. Harper. For a second, I considered ignoring it. Then curiosity or maybe pity won. Kinsley, she gasped before I could say a word. We're ruined. Dylan's accounts are frozen. The IRS says we owe nearly $20,000. He's drinking every night. We can't sleep. We can't. Slow down, I said, though my pulse had already quickened. What happened? They said, someone reported us. Some anonymous tip about unexplained cash. It's all lies. They're tearing our lives apart. Then prove them wrong, I said, my tone even. Show them where the money came from. Her voice cracked. We can't. Dylan said not to worry, that he had it covered. But now, she inhaled sharply, as if realizing the truth mid-sentence. You think it was him, don't you? Harper, I said carefully. Do you? Silence. Then a single sob. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. 2 days later, I got a call from the hospital. Grandpa had collapsed during breakfast. The doctor said it was exhaustion and stress, but I knew better. When I arrived, he was pale under the white sheets, his hands trembling when I took them. Kinsley, he whispered, don't let this family tear itself apart over money. I squeezed his hand. It's not about money anymore, Grandpa. It's about respect. He tried to smile, but his lips barely moved. She's still your sister, he murmured. Don't lose yourself avenging me. But it wasn't about revenge anymore. Not entirely. It was about restoring balance. That evening, Harper showed up at the hospital. Her mascara had bled down her cheeks. She looked nothing like the glossy woman from her Instagram stories. Dylan was nowhere to be seen. She sat beside Grandpa's bed and stared at the monitors. He doesn't even recognize me, she whispered. He's tired, I said. Tired of lies. She turned toward me sharply. You think I did this, don't you? You think I stole from him, did you? Her mouth opened, then closed again. Her chin trembled. Dylan said it was harmless. He said we'd return it after the mortgage cleared. He said Grandpa wouldn't even notice. My voice hardened. You knew. I didn't want to know, she cried. I tried to believe him. I thought it was just a temporary loan. A loan? I laughed softly, disbelief slicing through me. You emptied an old man's life savings and called it a loan? Harper covered her face, sobbing. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You never do, I said quietly. That's how people like you survive. You build your comfort on someone else's ruin. She looked up, tears streaking her face. Kinsley, please, help me fix this. I'll do anything. You can start, I said coldly, by confessing to him before he dies. Her eyes widened. He's fading, Harper. And if he leaves this world thinking you loved him while you stole from him, that's on you. She sat there for a long time, watching the slow rise and fall of Grandpa's chest. Then, with shaking hands, she leaned forward and whispered, "Grandpa, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I took what wasn't mine." His eyes fluttered open, confused, searching. "What did you say?" Tears streamed down her face. "It was me. I let Dylan talk me into it. I thought I'd make it right." For a moment, silence filled the room thick, suffocating. Then Grandpa turned his gaze to me. "You knew," he said softly. I nodded. "And you chose justice. You taught me that, remember?" He smiled faintly, then closed his eyes, whispering, "Good girl." Harper broke down beside him, sobbing uncontrollably. But I felt nothing. No triumph. No satisfaction. Just the dull ache of a wound too deep for victory. Later that night, in the hospital parking lot, Harper caught up to me. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice hollow. "You live with what you did," I said, turning away. "Kinsley, please, don't," I cut in. "You had every chance to stop. You chose greed." Her words came out sharp, trembling. "You think you're righteous, but you're just cruel." I stopped, turning to face her under the harsh fluorescent light. "Cruel?" I said. "No, Harper. Cruelty is stealing from the man who raised us. What I am." I stepped closer, eyes level with hers. "Is consequence." And with that, I walked away. 3 weeks passed after Harper's confession. Grandpa stabilized for a while, but his spark was gone. He rarely spoke, spending his afternoons staring out the window toward the desert. Every sunset looked like something he was saying goodbye to. When he finally drifted to sleep for the last time, I sat beside him in silence. He didn't leave behind a will that divided the estate. He left one sentence handwritten in his familiar scrawl. "Everything I built goes to the one who respected it." It wasn't about money. It was a message. And I would honor it exactly the way he would have wanted, with precision. 2 days after the funeral, Marcus Webb called. "Whitmore Holdings is officially listed as lien holder on Harper's property. They've missed 2 payments. You can issue a demand letter now." "Send it," I said. "How much do they owe?" "10,000, with penalties. Certified mail. Signature required." He hesitated. "This will destroy them, Kinsley." "They destroyed themselves," I said. 3 days later, Harper called. Her voice was brittle. "A company called Whitmore Holdings just sent us a letter. They're demanding $10,000 for unpaid taxes." "Is that you? Why would you think that?" "Because it's too perfect," she hissed. "First the IRS, now this. You're behind everything, aren't you?" "Harper, you of all people should know actions have consequences." "You're insane. That house is all we have." "Then maybe you should have thought twice before buying it with stolen money." "You'll regret this, Kinsley." "Maybe," I said softly, "but at least I'll sleep." She hung up. That week, Jacob texted me. "Their accounts are empty. Dylan's quit his job. They listed the Audi for sale. Things are collapsing fast." At night, I would sit in Grandpa's old study now, my study, and open the thick folder labeled Operation Balance. Every page told a story. Theft, lies, denial, and now, reckoning. It didn't bring joy. It brought clarity. 2 weeks later, Webb called again. "No payments received. Under Arizona law, you can now proceed with foreclosure." "Do it. It'll take 30 days before auction is approved." "That's fine," I said. "Let them sweat." When the notice arrived at Harper's doorstep, she drove to my house that same evening. She didn't bother knocking. She stormed in, her hair disheveled, eyes red and wild. "You bought our debt? I know it's you. You shouldn't be here, Harper. You're taking our home. Grandpa's dead, Dylan's gone, and you're still not satisfied." "I'm satisfied," I said evenly. "That you finally understand what theft costs." She stepped closer, trembling. "You think this makes you powerful? You're no better than me." "I didn't steal," I said quietly. "I collected." Her voice broke. "Please, Kinsley, don't do this. I'll sell the car. I'll get the money somehow." "It's too late. You're my sister, and you were his granddaughter. You should have acted like it." She froze. The words hit harder than any scream could. For a moment, she looked like the Harper I used to know before greed had twisted her into something unrecognizable. Then she turned away and walked out without another word. On the morning of the auction, The courthouse steps were warm under the desert Sunday. 3 bidders stood in the crowd. I recognized none of them. Marcus stood beside me, papers in hand. Opening bid, $250,000, the auctioneer called. One bidder raised his card. I raised mine. Another followed. The bids climbed steadily: 260, 270, 280. At $295,000, the last bidder dropped his hand. Sold to bidder number 12, the auctioneer declared. Marcus turned to me with quiet respect. Congratulations. You own the property. I nodded once. Not yet. I'll own the piece after. When Harper arrived, the crowd was already dispersing. Her face was pale, her lipstick smeared. She clutched the foreclosure notice in one hand. You took everything, she whispered. No, I said. You took everything from yourself. I just wrote the ending. What do you want from me, Kinsley? My life? No, I said, stepping closer. Just your silence, and your memory of what happens when you betray blood. Tears welled in her eyes. I hate you. I know. She turned and walked away, shoulders trembling. Dylan followed, silent and broken. That evening, Marcus sent me the final paperwork. The house, the one Harper bought with Grandpa's stolen money, was officially mine. I drove there the next morning. The gate creaked open, wind whispering through the palms. Inside, the marble floors gleamed the same marble Harper had once bragged about online. I walked through every room slowly. The silence was heavy, but it didn't ache. It felt like closure. In the living room, I found a single framed photo left behind. Me, Harper, and Grandpa, taken on her 21st birthday. We were smiling then. I almost didn't recognize us. I placed the photo face down on the counter. Rest easy now, Grandpa, I whispered. It's done. As I locked the door behind me, I realized something. Revenge hadn't made me powerful. It had made me precise. And sometimes, precision is the only language justice understands. The house was sold 3 weeks later. A young family bought it, a couple with 2 small children, and that brand of hope only people untouched by betrayal can carry. When I signed the final paperwork, Marcus said, "You made a clean profit. After legal fees, you still gained nearly 100,000. I didn't do it for profit," I replied. He smiled faintly. Then why did you do it? I looked out the window, the Arizona sun blazing gold across the horizon. Because some debts aren't paid with money. They're paid with peace. He nodded, like he understood, or at least didn't need to. A month later, I visited Grandpa's grave. The headstone was simple, just as he'd wanted. Arthur Whitmore, 1938, 2025. Integrity is wealth, no thief can touch. I knelt and brushed a few fallen petals from the marble. The desert breeze was warm, carrying the faint scent of rain that never came. It's over now, I said softly. Your legacy's safe. For a moment, I could almost hear him, that slow, steady voice that had guided me my whole life. Be patient, Kinsley. Justice has a longer memory than pain. I smiled, even as tears burned behind my eyes. Later that afternoon, I saw Harper. She was working at a cafe downtown, wearing a faded apron, hair tied back, hands trembling as she handed change to a customer. When she saw me, her face paled. She froze, coffee cup halfway to the counter. I walked over slowly. "Hi, Harper. What are you doing here?" she whispered. "Getting closure." "You got it already," she said bitterly. "You took everything." "No," I said quietly. "I gave it back to who it belonged to." Her voice cracked. "You're happy now. I'm broke. Dylan left. Everyone thinks I'm a thief." "You are one," I said. Not cruelly, just truthfully. She flinched, her jaw tightening. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're worse than I ever was. At least I didn't hide behind the law." "The difference," I said softly, "is that I didn't need to hide." We stood there for a long moment, 2 sisters separated by choices neither could undo. Then I stepped back, leaving a folded envelope on the counter. "What's this?" she asked. "Closure," I said again. "It's the deed to what's left of Grandma's cabin in Prescott. It's yours, if you can keep it this time." Her eyes widened, confusion flickering into disbelief. "Why?" "Because Grandpa wouldn't want you homeless. And because revenge stops here. Before she could answer, I turned and walked away. Driving back through the desert, the sun was setting behind the red cliffs, painting the sky in bands of fire and violet. For the first time in months, I felt still. I thought about everything that had happened. The investigation, the deception, the letters, the quiet nights waiting for justice to turn its wheels. Revenge hadn't made me happy, but it had made me whole. Harper would live with her guilt, I would live with my conscience, and Grandpa's legacy would live untarnished. That night, I opened my old laptop and scrolled to the top of the file, labeled Operation Balance. At the very end, I typed, Final entry, the 28th of August, 2025, justice completed. Family fractured, integrity restored. Sometimes the cost of peace is loneliness, but peace, unlike wealth, can't be stolen. I saved the file and closed the lid. Outside, the desert wind rose warm, endless, alive. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, soft and distant like a closing heartbeat. I poured a glass of wine, stood by the window, and whispered into the night, You were right, Grandpa. Respect is wealth. The storm broke over the desert, lightning flashing in the dark, illuminating the hills where the Whitmore name still meant something, not because of the fortune behind it, but because of the woman who refused to let it be stolen.